DPR IAN Wrapped. Who is DPR IAN? The DPR Collective. The DPR IAN Universe. The characters, Mito and Beyond. Visual language. Key releases. Christian Yu, born September 6, 1990. Born in Sydney, Australia. Who is DPR IAN? DPR IAN, born Christian Yu in Sydney, is an Australian singer, songwriter, dancer, producer, and director now based in Los Angeles. Before becoming one of the most distinctive creative voices in contemporary music, he spent his early years immersed in performing arts, heavy metal bands, and the visual spectacle of musicals and circuses, influences that would later shape his cinematic style. At 18, he began uploading dance videos to YouTube under the name bboyb.yu, eventually studying science and art at the University of Sydney before leaving to pursue dance in South Korea. Although he never planned to become an idol, he was streetcast and debuted as the leader of the K-pop group C-Clown in 2012 under the stage name Rome. After the group disbanded in 2015, he co-founded the independent creative label Dream Perfect Regime, DPR. DPR IAN. Did and bipolar disorder. How his mental health shaped his art, identity, and storytelling. DPR IAN has spoken openly about living with bipolar I and did, a diagnosis he received in middle school after experiencing intense mood episodes. He describes his first manic episode as a moment where reality suddenly shifted, emotions flooding in, time slowing down, and his senses becoming overwhelming. These early experiences became a defining part of his emotional world. Music became one of the first tools suggested to him as a way to channel his feelings creatively. Over time, it grew into his primary outlet, a place where he could translate the chaos of his inner world into sound, visuals, and storytelling. IAN has explained that his creative process is deeply connected to his mood cycles. When he begins a project during a high but dips into a low before finishing, he often cannot return to that work until his emotional state rises again. He has also shared moments where sudden mood shifts affected him during shoots, describing how quickly his emotional landscape can change. Despite the challenges, IAN emphasizes that some of his most impactful work emerged during his lowest moments, though he is careful not to rely on those lows as a creative source. He has said that while the art created in those states can feel powerful, it also comes from a place of vulnerability that he must navigate responsibly. One of the most complex parts of his process is that once a project is finished, he often feels disconnected from it. Because his emotional state has shifted, he can no longer relate to the feelings that created the work. Yet through all of this, DPR IAN continues to create, not just for himself, but for the community that has formed around his honesty and vulnerability. He has said that the connection with fans, and the shared understanding of emotional highs and lows, is one of the reasons he keeps going. C-Clown. Who were they? CCLOWN, short for Crown Clown, was a South Korean boy group under Yedang Entertainment, active from 2012 to 2015. Despite a short career, they built a loyal international fanbase and are remembered today especially because their leader Rome later became DPR IAN, a globally influential artist and director. Members: Rome, Christian Yu, leader, main rapper, main dancer Australian, later founder of DPR and now known as DPR IAN. Siwoo, vocalist known for his calm personality and interest in photography. Ray, lead vocalist, visual recognized for his soft, emotional vocal tone. Kongjun, main vocalist, strong live vocals and expressive performance style. T.K, lead rapper, former trainee in the pre-debut lineup of BTOB. Maru Makna, lead dancer, youngest member with high energy and stage presence.
Swag. Man, I swear the other day I'm trying to do my own things. The hell you trying to do to me, girl? But I really came down to this. Only one thing left to do. Roll like kings, lay low like clowns. 내가 준 반지 다시 남겨도 돼. 내가 준 목걸이 난 거쳐도 돼.
The DPR Collective. Dream Perfect Regime. The creative powerhouse behind DPR IAN's universe. Dream Perfect Regime, DPR, is an independent, multidisciplinary creative collective founded by 4 individuals: DPR IAN, DPR Live, DPR RAM, and DPR Cream. Each member has a unique role, specialty, and artistic identity. Together, they create a fully self-produced world of music, film, storytelling, and visual art. DPR IAN, the visual architect and multidisciplinary artist. Role: director, editor, creative director, singer, producer. Based in Los Angeles. What he does: directs and edits nearly all DPR music videos. Creates the visual identity, lore, and cinematic universe. Designs characters like Mito and builds the narrative world. Produces and performs his own music. Shapes the overall aesthetic of DPR. Signature works: DPR Lives, Jasmine, Legacy, Yellow Cab. His own films: So Beautiful, No Blueberries, Ballroom Extravaganza. External directing: Bobby's, Holop, Mino's, Body, Taeyong's, Wake Me Up. Directed IU's, Shopper, 2024. What he stands for: cinematic storytelling, emotional honesty, surrealism, mental health narratives, and total creative freedom. DPR Live, the voice and sonic frontman. Role: rapper, vocalist, performer. What he did: he led DPR's musical output. Created emotional, melodic rap and R&B. Worked closely with Cream to shape DPR's sound. Represented DPR on stage and in global releases. Signature works: Martini Blue, Jasmine, Text Me, Yellow Cab, Legacy. What he stood for: warm, emotional storytelling through music, the voice of the DPR universe. DPR Cream, the sound designer and producer. Role: producer, composer, sound architect. What he does: produces instrumentals for DPR Live and DPR IAN. Creates DPR's signature atmospheric, dreamy sound. Builds emotional textures and sonic landscapes. Releases his own solo music, instrumental, ambient, emotional, signature works. Production across DPR Live's and DPR IAN's discographies. His own solo tracks and sound experiments. What he stands for: atmosphere, emotion, texture, the sonic world builder of DPR. DPR RAM, executive producer and creative strategist. Role: executive producer, creative director, project manager. What he did: oversaw all DPR projects from concept to release. Ensured cohesion between music, visuals, and branding. Managed schedules, creative direction, and execution. Acted as the strategic backbone of the collective. Signature contributions: executive producer for DPR Live and DPR IAN releases. Oversaw global branding and rollout strategies. What he stood for: vision alignment, structure, strategy. The birth of the DPR universe. So Beautiful, 2020. This is the true beginning of the DPR universe. So Beautiful wasn't just a debut single, it was the first doorway into IAN's inner world. Here, we see fragmented identity, surreal visuals, emotional distortion, the first hints of Mito. The aesthetic language: black, white, blue, red, the cinematic style that defines DPR. This video is the genesis of the universe. The first character: Mito. With the EP mood swings in this order, the universe becomes narrative. Mito is introduced as a manifestation of IAN's bipolar disorder, a character born from emotional extremes, a symbol of chaos, beauty, and pain, the other self, the shadow that follows him. Mito is not a villain. Mito is not a hero. Mito is a mirror. This is where the DPR universe becomes a story, not just an aesthetic. Mito and the mood swings universe. The concept: DPR IAN created mood swings in this order as a way to explore mental health through art. He wanted to show that traits often labeled as dark or negative can also be seen as superpowers when expressed creatively. The EP reflects his own experiences living with bipolar disorder and transforms them into a cinematic universe. The characters, Mito and Mr. Insanity. The EP introduces the foundation of Ian's fictional universe, Mr. Insanity. A chaotic, unstable creator figure. Represents the overwhelming, disordered side of Ian's mind. Creates characters in his own image to find sanity. Mito, his first creation, symbolizes innocence, purity, and the angelic part of Ian. Becomes jealous, feels betrayed, and turns into a destructive force. Represents how Ian's doubts and lows destroy his good moments. Mito wants to be the main character, just like intrusive thoughts often take over the emotional narrative. Mito vs. Mr. Insanity. The core lore of the DPR universe. Mito, Mr. Insanity, the door, the key and the villagers. The DPR universe is built around an internal battle inside Ian's mind, expressed through characters, symbols, and cinematic storytelling. Here is my complete, simplified version of the lore. Mr. Insanity is the chaotic architect of the universe. He creates all characters, including Mito, in the hope of finding sanity. He is spiraling, unstable, and desperate to understand himself. Symbolism. Mr. Insanity represents Ian's manic highs, overwhelming creativity, and emotional chaos. Mito. He was meant to represent pure innocence, which is why he appears angelic. But when he becomes jealous of the other creations, Mr. Insanity banishes him. Mito's reaction. He feels betrayed. He resents Mr. Insanity. He vows to infect every creation. He wants to be the main character. Symbolism. Mito represents Ian's emotional lows, doubts, and the moments where good things get destroyed by fear. The door and the key, the heart of the universe. Deep inside Ian's mind, there is a metaphorical door. Behind it lies the core of his psyche, his deepest memories, his trauma, the truth he fears, the place where he could lose himself. The key unlocks this door. If Mr. Insanity gets the key and opens the door, Ian risks falling into complete psychological collapse. Mito guards the door, not because he's good, but because if the door opens, Mito's universe collapses too. The villagers, the protectors of Ian's mind. In Don't Go Insane, the villagers are not enemies. They are guardians inside Ian's emotional world. They represent stability, grounding community, the parts of IAN that want to stay sane. This is why they trap Mr. Insanity, tie him to the pole, restrain him, keep him from reaching the door. They are trying to protect Ian from the part of himself that could push him over the edge. Emerald City. The people you see in Emerald City are the same: helpers, stabilizers, emotional anchors. They support Mito in keeping the universe balanced. The core of it all. The DPR universe centers on a battle inside Ian's mind. Mito, once innocent, now guards the door to Ian's deepest emotions, while Mr. Insanity, the chaotic creator, seeks the key that could unlock total collapse. The villagers and the people of Emerald City represent the stabilizing forces trying to protect Ian. So I Danced shows the moment before the breakdown, while Don't Go Insane shows the fight to keep Mr. Insanity away from the door. Together, they form the emotional heart of the Mito saga. What about the other songs? How do they fit in? Full song timeline and narrative function. Phase 1. The birth of Mito, 2020-2021. This era establishes the character Mito and the emotional, psychological split between Ian, the self, and Mito, the alter ego. 1. So Beautiful, 2020. Function. Introduction of Mito as a seductive, destructive persona. Establishes the visual language: black, white, distortion, mania, glamour. Mito appears as both a savior and a threat. 2. No Blueberries, 2021. Function. Shows the paranoia and overstimulation of living with Mito. The blueberry motif equals overstimulation, sensory overload, loss of control. Connects Ian's world to DPR Cream and Live, shared universe. 3. Scaredy Cat, 2021. Function. Mito mocks Ian's fear and insecurity. Represents the internal bullying dynamic. Mito as the dominant voice. Shows the performance mask Ian wears to survive. 4. Mito, 2021. Function. The origin story. Mito is revealed as a coping mechanism born from trauma, pressure, and identity fragmentation. Establishes the cycle. Ian right pointing arrow breaks right pointing arrow Mito emerges right pointing arrow chaos right pointing arrow regret right pointing arrow repeat. Full song timeline and narrative function. Phase 2, The Collapse, 2022. This era is the emotional heart of the lore, the part you all already focused on. 5. Dope Lovers, 2022. Function. Toxic relationship between Ian and Mito. We love each other because we destroy each other. Sets up the emotional stakes for the breakdown. 6. Don't Go Insane, 2022. Function. The breaking point. Ian begs himself not to lose control, but Mito is already taking over. Cinematic depiction of dissociation, panic, and surrender. 7. Ballroom Extravaganza, 2022. Function. The aftermath of the breakdown. Ian wanders through a surreal ballroom of memories, illusions, and personas. Mito is present but distant, a ghost in the room. Full song timeline and narrative function. Phase 3, The Descent and Duality, 2023. This era explores the emotional consequences of living with Mito. 8. Peanut Butter and Tears, 2023. Function. The come down after chaos. Sweetness mixed with sadness, coping mechanisms, self-soothing, regression. Shows Ian's vulnerability and exhaustion. 9. Mood, 2023. Function. Mito resurfaces in a seductive, confident form. Represents the addictive side of the alter ego. You hate me, but you love how I make you feel. 10. Limbo, 2023. Function. Ian is stuck between personas, neither Mito nor himself. A transitional state. Numbness, floating, emotional paralysis. Symbolizes the in-between phase of identity reconstruction. Full song timeline and narrative function. Phase 4, The Reconciliation, 2024-2025. This era begins to merge Ian and Mito into a single, integrated identity. 11. So I Danced, 2024. Function. Ian stops fighting Mito and starts moving with him. Dance equals acceptance, surrender, coexistence. One of the most important lore pieces because it shows, if I can't escape you, I'll learn to move with you. 12. Mr. Insanity, 2024. Function. Mito speaks directly. He is not the villain, he is the protector born from pain. Reveals the emotional truth behind the persona. 13. You're Not Coming Back, 2025. Function. Closure of the old cycle. Ian releases the version of himself that kept breaking. Not a goodbye to Mito, but to the fear of Mito. Final note, just my interpretation. This entire breakdown is fan-made and reflects only my personal interpretation of DPR IAN's work. I don't claim ownership of any rights, and I don't claim that my view is the correct one. Art, especially this kind of art, is meant to be experienced differently by everyone. Some people may see the story another way. Some may connect to different songs, different symbols, different emotions. And that's exactly the beauty of it. Black heart what I believe about DPR IAN's lore. DPR IAN's discography is not meant to be understood in a straight line. It's meant to be felt as a cycle of breaking, rebuilding, and becoming. It's a portrait of a mind learning to live with itself. A dance between chaos and clarity. A mirror held up to the parts of us we don't always want to see. And just like Mito, the lore will return in new forms. Not as a monster, but as a mirror.